The Wes Penra Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenry.com. Solution Section. Solution Paper Number 4, Understanding Multidimensionality. By Wes Penra, Sunday, August 21, 2011. Part 2. 4. More on time and how it is used by physical and non-physical beings, the end of a cycle and the start of a new. Time is such a fascinating subject, because we can do so much with it once we've figured out how to use it and because over it. Extraterrestrials use time all the time, for travel, time travel, make themselves invisible, play, due to time being different depending on where your point of view is, and which laws you are applying, ETS can use it in many different ways. Albeit time is simultaneous, to be able to play the game, we need to use it one way or another. 4.1 Time and frequency, Earth splitting in consciousness into mainly two different planets. People have been asking me every now and then where we go once we leave Earth. How many times do we reincarnate on this planet before we go somewhere else? Well, from a multidimensional perspective you can never leave Earth. LPGC number is telling us in their working model that you are only indexed to Earth once and can never come back after body death, because if you tried, you simply couldn't, because it would be, in very simplistic terms, like making duplicate comments in a blog comment section. The software normally tells you it's a duplicate and doesn't allow you to post the second entry. The working model says further that there is no frequency fence holding humanity back here on Earth, but on the other hand it says that here on Earth we can only evolve so much, and then we have to move on to somewhere else to expand our consciousness, wherever in space and time our consciousness takes us when we're done here. From their perspective, I think they are correct, but I would like to add to this from a metaphysical level. There is overwhelming evidence that we live lots of simultaneous lives on Earth, and the answer to the question in the beginning of this section would be that on one level we can never leave Earth, because all time is now, in a constant present, so a part of us will always be here. Also, there are as many different versions of Earth as there are people on it, and every decision a person makes creates a new, potential reality. Then, on another level, we are also somewhere and someone else, on other planets all over the cosmos and perhaps in other universes as well, developing ourselves simultaneously. Time is fluid and slippery, just like everything else in the multiverse, and we beings who live in it, humans or non-humans, live under laws that were decided by the Prime Creator and the Founders, whom have the power and knowledge to create whole universes. Different laws apply in different universes, and sometimes even in different galaxies. So, the next question I run into sometimes is that if all time is simultaneous, and a body dies and the soul fragment returns to the astral planes of negative space, why then does this soul fragment plan for its next visit to Earth, like Dr. Michael Newton's 7,000 plus case studies show? If time is simultaneous, a soul fragment shouldn't reincarnate. We have slightly touched on this subject earlier, but let's expand a little bit on it. First of all, in the third density things are not set in stone, there is both predetermined events and free will in people's lives, free will to change any planned, predestined, event. Like we mentioned about, Earth exists in many different versions and in many different densities and dimensions. It's not just one Earth, as we are trained to believe. The way our DNA is constructed by the original creator gods, with its basic 12 strands. We ascend to a new density of Earth once we have had our helices reactivated. In other words, when the Anunnaki came and tampered with us, about 250,000 years ago, we descended to a lower density of Earth than the one we were living in at the moment. Due to that, 10 of our 12 helices were deactivated. So let's start this discussion from a reasonable beginning. The Oversoul is your higher self, who knows much more than the part of you who is incarnated on Earth. This Oversoul has higher Oversouls, which it is connected to, namely the Earth, in some aspects, and the Sun, whom are in their turn connected to the central Sun in a local system, and eventually you are connected to the Galactic Oversoul, which is the central Sun in the galactic center, and so on, in an ascending order. The Sun, as a logos, a living entity and creator God in herself, is splitting herself to have an experience and sends those parts of herself out in cosmos to start orbiting around her. They become planetary bodies. Each planet has its own cycles and goals, which were determined before it was created. Creator gods, higher evolved beings, travel to new star/solar systems and transperm them, seed them, and life begins. They create the symbiosis necessary for life to function in first, second, and third densities. They create the DNA applicable for the specific planet these beings are going to evolve on, e.g. Earth. Souls are here to see to that the goals of a certain solar system are accomplished. Souls come here in huge quantities, and they are all unique, until we all again become one with the Prime Creator. These souls are what we normally call oversouls today in metaphysics. So, let's concentrate on Earth for a while. This is how I've come to understand this concept. The oversoul is splitting itself into a soul fragment. This soul fragment is still you, a higher self within the bigger oversoul. This soul fragment is then split into a certain amount of additional smaller souls, who are inserted on Earth to occupy bodies. Each of these smaller souls is incarnating into a body in a particular time, in the linear time structure, but inserted vertically, vertical time, simultaneously. Thus, you have different fractions of yourself incarnated into different time periods, but they are all you. The smaller soul, whom you consider being you, reading this, was incarnated in this particular time, and one reason you can't perceive your other simultaneous incarnations is because you are separated by the illusion of linear time, a mass agreement, and an experiment that was planned out for Earth a long time ago. Let's say that you die today. The smaller soul, whom you considers being you, leaves the body and returns to the main soul fragment within the oversoul. This soul fragment is separated from other soul fragments even within the oversoul for the reason to have a planetary experience, e.g. Earth. Other soul fragments have experiences elsewhere in the universe, and keep those experiences separated. The oversoul then gathers all these experiences from near and far into one big database, which is then sent further to its oversoul and so forth. No information, and no memories, are ever lost. Once you are in the astral, your oversoul, you have access to the experiences you have had as all these smaller souls whom were incarnated on Earth. Because Earth is based on linear time, the small soul thinks in terms of present and past incarnations, although, in actuality, they happen simultaneously. So you, who just died in our example, ponder if you achieved the goals you set before incarnation or not. You also have help from spirit guides and the council of elders to figure these things out. When you've decided what your goals are for the next lifetime, you choose the best astrological aspects and a bloodline which will enhance your goals, and then you reincarnate in what you perceive being the future. In reality, the oversoul, and above it, other oversouls, creator gods etc., have decided the goals for the planet. Each density cycle is 26,556 years. A great year, which is equivalent to the solar system orbiting the galactic center once, and the oversoul, after had split itself into an Earth soul fragment, sent out an unknown number of mini fractions, small souls, to Earth like explained above. However, in a free will universe, these incarnations are not set in stone. Therefore, similar laws apply in the Earth astral planes as on Earth. The linear time concept is still alive and well, although time is not passing by at the same speed as on Earth. For some, time doesn't seem to exist, although the linear time concept is kept within the realm of the soul fragment, the lesser you, lesser only in the sense that your knowledge and wisdom is less than that of the oversoul. Now, we would think that the next lifetime would be in the future, and many times that's the case, but is not necessarily true at all times. Perhaps a person in astral realizes she just experienced something very powerful in the previous lifetime, and someone, an other self, in her perceived past has just been waiting for that experience to happen in the future, unknowingly so, but on a certain level of experience that could be true. So this person in the astral decides to incarnate in the past to live out the experience there. The past is fluid and all time concurrent, so it is possible to jump between past, present, and future and change things around from the astral into the physical. We can think of each lifetime as a time container, including all the experiences we had during that lifetime, and we can go back into that container and change things around. Diagram 2. Most common is to make these changes by reincarnating again into the past, but changes in your past and future can be done while you are incarnated by making certain choices. When you heal along the lines of time, you do the main work in the physical, in the lifetime you perceive as your present one, together with your best friend, your body. However, from a linear perspective, time is moving forward while our planet is in orbit around the galactic center on its way to complete a great year, so when the great year is complete, what you have in your time containers is what counts, and that will determine your soul/body/mind vibration. We need to look at this as a game, or it won't be comprehensive. So, in 3D we can see the interaction between linear and non-linear time, and it transfers to the astral plane. Souls who are living out their 3D experiment won't go to the same place in the astral as those fragments of yourself who are simultaneously experiences higher densities. This is the complexity of the multiverse. Before you die, now, for example, decide where you want to go after you depart from this lifetime. The afterlife, just as life on the earth plane, is fluid, and in larger terms adjusting to your belief systems. Be clear on where you want to go, what you want to do, what you want to experience, and whom in particular you want to meet on the other side. Dr. Michael Newton's research has shown that souls in the astral can with quite ease manifest their thoughts and thus create places to live without having to hire a carpenter. They build a house in no time with their thoughts. Everything is much less dense there, and besides from that, the main difference between here and there is that you don't have a physical body. You have an astral body that you use, but it's transparent and can't do what physical bodies on Earth can do. They can't hug others physically, albeit, they can energetically, and can't have sex like we do, to name a couple of things. The restrictions from not having a body is what drives many souls to incarnate again after have enjoyed afterlife for a while. So, a soul fragment perceives itself reincarnating into future or past incarnations to freely experience its own personal development. The spots, or vertical inserts of small souls into linear time, now fill the positions by experiencing events in a linear time fashion, with the past, present, and future. You have 26,556 years to figure it out. All civilizations will come to this point where they misuse energy, start experimenting with what they've learned from the gods, other creator gods. They use and misuse technology and are on the brink of destroying their own planet. Many races before us, here on Earth and elsewhere in the universe, have destroyed their own home planet before they were able to pull themselves together and get it straight. The question is, will this version of Earth go the same way? At the end of a density cycle, time is always speeding up. This is what the Pleiadians call the nanosecond, 1987 to 2012. The star systems, in our case our own solar system, are aligning with the galactic center, and a lot of energy is released on the gamma-ray spectrum. Those who have prepared themselves for this moment are very excited about what is happening, and they are like sponges. Their nervous systems adjust to the enormous amount of cosmic radiation, which is different from the dangerous radiation from nuclear reactors. Their chakras open up and the DNA is reactivating. In our case, as we were descending instead of ascending and had to go through this density several times with little hope to evolve enough to be harvested, now have a great chance to break that pattern. The reason, of course, why we had to stay here, was because we, on some level, allowed the Anunnaki and a few other races to tamper with our DNA, like discussed earlier. We, who are the sponges, are now quickly having our DNA reactivated, with help from the original creator gods, the gamma rays, and our own willingness to evolve and ascend. We become multidimensional as we heal along the lines of time, and at the very end of a great year, times collapses and timelines merge. When this happens, the question is, how much work have you put into your own expansion of consciousness? Depending on how much you managed to accomplish during the last great year, you can determine where you are at this particular point in time. Here's a simple checklist, the way I see it. Do you feel you've had enough of power and control, overuse and misuse of technology, secrecy, inhumane actions against each other, wars, famine, punishment, injustice, oppressive banking systems? The list goes on. Do you feel that you are expanding yourself, your knowledge, that you are wiser today than you were 6 months ago, or even weeks ago? Are you able to love your enemy, meaning those who are of darkness? Can you see that they are here for a bigger purpose, to help the rest of us with our ascension process by being our catalysts? Can you see that darkness is just another expression of yourself? Or are you still feeling hate, rage, or bitterness when you think about these forces who are controlling mankind in this density? Can you love everybody and everything unconditionally? Do you feel you are spreading light into the darkness in your local universe, your environment, just by being you? Are people often coming to you for advice, or just want to be in your space for no obvious reason? Do you mostly attract people of higher frequency? Are you understanding that there will be a split in consciousness on this planet and that it will split into 2 main different worlds, eventually, and branch out from there into multiple realities? Do you understand that the best thing you can do to help humanity on a personal basis is to evolve yourself and work on your own progress? This way you are like a candle in the dark. And this light, little by little, is lightening up other candles, as other people get triggered by your beingness and begin their own spiritual journey. This will branch out and eventually dissolve the darkness. Do you understand that by sacrificing yourself by not working on your own development and instead go in and work on solving other people's problem is counterproductive and may slow them down, rather than speed them up as it will your own evolvement? Instead, giving them help to self-help is the absolute best way to go, because this way you are not interfering with the law of free will and the person's own experiences they need to have to raise their consciousness. Do you understand that your path is your path and everybody else has their lessons to learn, and they may differ significantly from yours? Are you grasping the concept that there is no right or wrong way to do things, just different ways? Mistakes are good to make, because that's how we learn. Intelligence is measured by how many times you are making the same mistakes, not so much if you make them or not. Do you understand that the intellect is limited in the process of raising your consciousness? Intuition and inner knowledge is senior to the intellect, because the former has lower vibration than the latter. Do you know that by judging others you judge yourself? We are all one, and what happens to one person happens to us all. The things you don't like in another person are the same things you don't like with yourself. These 10 points on the checklist are indicators, nothing more, nothing less. It may be that you feel you are okay on all 10 items, but not an expert. Sometimes you have a tendency to fall back on old trends. This is okay and normal. I can't emphasize this enough. We are humans, in 3rd density, and we can only go so far here with all mixed energies around us, but my point with this checklist is for you to see if these, or similar things, are what you're working on, improving on, and putting most of your attention on, or not. If you are ready to move on. There will be a time, within the next few years, sometime after 2012, when you feel the urge to move out from the big cities, perhaps move to, or build your own community which will be self-sufficient. You may team up with those of similar vibration and create a reality of your own. You will reconnect with nature and the elements and feel connected to them on a very intimate level. You will feel the awareness in everything around you, the consciousness in rocks, plants, animals, trees, stars, everything. Your nervous system will reach out through cosmos and beyond and you will become multi-D. There are quite a few people who are already doing this. Those who don't work on these 10 points on the checklist may choose to live in metropolitans, a life with sophisticated technology, cloning, microchipping, artificial intelligence, life extension via nanotechnology, but at the same time firm birth control is being implemented, where you are taken care of by a controlling government, which is perhaps even openly run by ETS, read the Anunnaki. Most people in this category will probably not even read these papers, but we all need to be careful not to fall for the manipulation out there. It's not like we all of a sudden, from one day to another, will have all this ultra technology around us. It's creeping up on us, and if we're not perceptive, we won't notice, and one day we realize that we've become part of something we don't like. Once we've gone that far, it may be hard to break out. Why so? Because it's within the nanosecond you can make your best progress to reactivate the DNA. After 2012, slowly but surely, the new Earth will arise, built on the consciousness from those who choose, by soul agreement, to build it. It's going to develop into a fourth density Earth, while the third density Earth will continue existing in a parallel reality. For a while, the two will coexist, but eventually and gradually they will split from each other due to frequency differences. Those who chose the first path will find themselves in a less dense world, where people are multidimensional and have their 12-strand DNA activated, now working themselves up towards the next density, most probably with additional DNA activation involved, which may be a new cycle of 26,556 years, in our terms. Although the RA material says we spend more time in fourth density, from our linear perspective, than we do in 3D. Those who live in the fourth density will not perceive time as linear so much anymore, though, but that's a subject for future papers. Once the fourth density cycle is completed, if you manage to increase your vibration to the point where you can ascend to a fifth density Earth, that's what will happen. If not, you will probably stay in fourth density for a while to learn the lessons of that frequency. This is also exactly what will happen with those people who choose to, or haven't expanded their consciousness enough, to ascend to the fourth density Earth. This is what the end times are about. It's about choices and raising our vibrations. Time will start all over and a new third density cycle of 26,556 years will begin for those who remain within the third density frequency, with small souls continuing to incarnate in the 3D. This is not the first third density cycle of 26,556 years. Archaeologists have found remnants of humans and other creatures that are older than 1 year, that's a given. However, like emphasized in the RA material, http://laophone.info, a harvest was not always possible at the end of a cycle, and sometimes only a few were harvested to a higher density, if any. 4.2 Choice and Victimhood. If I say there are no victims, only co-creation, this will trigger people to react. They see children starving, mind-controlled children, people in the worst imaginable situations, and like to think of them as victims. They can't see how on earth these people have chosen to get into that situation. Understandably so, because we feel compassion for each other, and we care. We want to help those in need, and we want to understand evil. I don't like the word victim at all, because it implies helplessness and total effect. It is in perfect order to intervene when we see somebody suffer, being beaten up, starve, or whatever the situation may be, a helpless child. I'd be the first to run to help. It's not about that, but on a higher level, it's co-creation. This whole 3D reality is one big experiment, as we've discussed, and the souls who bravely decided to take a deep breath and experience it, out of love for the Prime Creator, to help it experience itself on a new level, did so by choice. As the game became more complicated, each soul sometimes gets involved in great challenges that need to be dealt with in that, or in a future lifetime. What it is all about is to be able to experience this reality to its fullest and raise one's frequency above the third density and complete the game. We have a certain amount of incarnations and 26,556 years to do so. It's not a big deal if we don't, but then we need to start a new cycle in 3D until we master the game. Mastering the game doesn't mean we need to know everything there is to know in 3D, but we need to know enough to raise our frequency and embrace the merging of our timelines at the end of the cycle, which is now. Due to amnesia, we forget the bigger picture of the game. We see someone suffer, and we don't understand why. Not until we grasp that there is a learning experience in everything that happens can we see that even when someone suffers there is something to learn. If we see a bad situation, we need to give it immediate attention and discharge the situation, whatever it might be, and whatever is needed. Then, if an opportunity arises, with our greater knowledge, we can educate the person on the situation until we come to a point where the person can help him/herself, or get other appropriate assistance. All help needs to have as a goal to be help to self-help. If we have that in mind, we don't directly intervene with that person's learning process, we only teach them how to take charge over a situation that got out of hand. Then, use dream state to work with that person's energies. It's still foreign to people, but it's in dream state agreements are made, so our decisions, physical reality and problems can be solved after the souls in questions meet in theta state and do energy work. Go to bed at night with the intention to help a certain person in need. Whether you know the person well, or if it's someone you met for the first time, is irrelevant. You may not remember when you wake up, but if you have a clear intention before you fall asleep, this is what will happen. Do it a few nights in a row, it will be of great assistance. 5. Amnesia. Around 11 to 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the fall of Atlantis and the Great Flood, the Earth tipped on its axis. This is fairly well known, but not the consequences from it, and why this happened. If we count back, it was 3 to 4 Nibiru crossings ago, 12,000, 15,000, /3,600 equals 3 plus 4. We know through Sitchin's translations, other sources, and direct encounters with the A.A.M.I, that Nibiru's gravitational pull caused these effects on Earth. The tipping of the axis is what created amnesia. Earth, whose axis had been much straighter and to now be in an angle, totally changed our contact with the cosmos. How is this, you may ask? This has to do with how memories are stored. Mainstream science of today has no clue how memories are stored, they just assume it's stored in the brain. Not so at all. In metaphysics, and even in subquantum physics, we know that memories are stored in the ether and not in the brain. The biological being, the bio-mind, has access to the collective memories of humankind through the ether. If the Earth is tipped on its axis, depending on how much so, it's getting more and more difficult to access the collective memories, until at a certain degree tip it's nearly impossible to do it at all. If it's really bad, it can create a blank slate, which would make time start all over again from zero, where people and animals on this planet would have no past memories. There have been a lot of pole shifts on Earth over the history of time, and the Earth's axis has tipped more than once, but there was a major incident happening 12 to 15,000 years ago. Since then, when a soul is entering a biokind on this planet, they go into amnesia, because the angle at which they would have to access the past memories makes it almost impossible to do so. In alternative research studies, conclusions are often made that it was simply a celestial outside body which caused both the biblical deluge and the tipping of the Earth axis. The biblical flood most certainly happened due to the passing of Nibiru 3 cycles ago, but how about the tipping? Could that be, or is there a more sinister reason for our amnesia which was never told to the Sumerians or to people of other cultures? The current tilt of the Earth's axis is about 23.4 degrees. We know there was also a misuse of energies, crystals, resources, and power involved at the time of the flood and the amnesia. Today we use oil, which is totally insane, when there is knowledge of how to get zero-point energy out of the air, but it has everything to do with whom is controlling the resources, of course, and where the money lies. The old gods, during the Atlantean era, were mining for yellow gold, and we humans are still mining for gold today, but now it's black. Both they and us have depleted Earth of its resources without having any respect for the planet which still hosts both these different beings today, humans and Anunnaki. But was misuse of energy by the gods actually the reason for the tipping of the axis, and if so, did someone want us to forget? The clue lies in my earlier papers, where we discuss how Marduk rewrote history to favor himself as the god. He wanted to erase all memories of earlier gods of this planet to avoid competition. To do this, he of course not only had to rewrite history, but also erase the memory of our earlier history and replace it with false memories. Marduk was not a scientist, at least not at that time, and had to rely on others to accomplish certain scientific equations and create different effects. The Guardian Alliance is telling us that it was the Pleiadian Samjason Anunnaki of Alcyone and their Enlility Dikron and Marduk Necromitan Nibiruan allies who were behind the house cleaning of Earth's historical records around 12,500 years ago and are the ones who have run most of the world dominion campaigns on Earth since 250,000 years back, and interestingly enough, Joshua Free, author and Anunnaki hybrid, claiming to be Nabu, Marduk's son, in his current incarnation, mentions the Mardukite Necronomicon Anunnaki on his website. I would presume it's the same group the Guardian Alliance are talking about. My best guess is that the Earth axis was tilted during the passing of Nibiru, when the deluge came, but perhaps the Enlil, Jehovah, and his people helped tipping it with assistance from their scientists to really wipe out the memories of Earth together with the human population and their hybrid offspring. Or it was done afterwards when the Enlil to his big disappointment discovered that a part of humankind had survived thanks to his half-brother Ea. The Enlil's intention was of course to wipe out the whole human/Anunnaki hybrid population, but maybe he also wanted anyone who landed on Earth, or any new species created after the tilt, not to have access to the memories in the ether. The Anunnaki, of course, knew how memories are stored. Then, later on, Marduk simply had to rewrite the history from the flood up to the day he wanted it to be year 1, day 1. 5.1 Clarification of the human experiment and the dependency on linear time. Now it becomes clearer how, and from where, the human experiment originates. It basically started with the fall of Atlantis and the Great Flood. The Earth tilted on its axis and mass amnesia followed together with the wipeout of most of humanity. This happened around the middle of a great year, 26,556 years, and we are now living in the opposition of that time, on the other side of the galactic center. Before the Earth tilted, people were much more multidimensional and could tune into collective memories with much more ease, merge with the elements, and not being caught up in linear time and the frequency fence. Linear time was, as it seems, introduced by the Anunnaki, when they told humans about history, and how everything has a past, present, and an unknown future. Nothing wrong with telling us about history, you may think, and as a principle, you're right, but by telling history from a linear time perspective created a limitation which was pretty convenient for the gods. If people started thinking in this new, overall agreed upon fashion, they would be easier to control than if they were able to access all time simultaneously. After that, everything changed. Linear time became an even more solid concept through the industrialization era we still live in. Before that, time was more local. People knew when the sun rose, how it moved across the sky and set in the evening, and they built their day around that. After all, that was still a more multidimensional way of thinking and living. Later, with the industrialization, everybody had to be on time for work, clocks popped up everywhere, and you were timed at what you were doing. Then, at a certain time, you got off work, etc. Linear time became very solid. Some say it really took off in that direction when the railroads were built. The railroad companies put out schedules when trains arrived and left, and people had to adjust to those. So the solid version of linear time didn't start until a few hundred years ago. There is a sole agreement to participate in the linear time experiment, although on a lower level it may look like pure suppression. But for those who have read my papers from the beginning up to this point know that everything in existence is Prime Creator expressing itself. Albeit, Earth is not the only planet in 3D which operates on linear time, it's one of the most monitored, because it's also a living library. Souls, like ourselves, who are here in this reality, are contributing tremendously to the overall learning process of the multiverse, and the excitement amongst ET races is big now as we approach the end of the nanosecond. 6. Timelines and the electromagnetic fields. In science, the electromagnetic spectrum is the yardstick they use to identify what their instruments are picking up in space. However, if scientists had different kinds of instruments, they would pick up something else. This is an example where thinking inside or outside the box becomes so important. Scientists build machines to be able to discover something out in space, and then when they start using them, they say, "Look, we were right. This is what we have discovered." Much so, because they were expecting to find it. The electromagnetic spectrum, just like time, is basically an idea. Time is real in the sense that we can see how the sun moves and the earth spins, and the electromagnetic spectrum has a reality in those frequencies of energies with electro and magnetic qualities, appear to enliven the atmospheres of space, and can be used to convey information. When comes to simultaneous lives, we experience life from a visible spectrum. This reality, which we experience, is just a tiny spectrum of the overall, available range of spectra there are available. Our eyes are adjusted to only see this little tiny bit of reality. Animals, in that respect, are much more sensitive than we are, and have a wider spectrum available to them. There is consciousness involved in the electromagnetic spectrum that the scientists are not aware of. Scientists tend to think that the electromagnetic spectra are lines on a yardstick, but the spectrum is everywhere, it's intertwined and not a line, like on a thermometer. If the thermometer shows 60 degrees, it doesn't mean it's 60 degrees where the thermometer is, but in the atmosphere. Get the picture? Within the visible spectrum where we live there are simultaneously other containers of time, locked away for our protection. If they weren't, we would go insane. Schizophrenic people have tuned into these containers of time, and that's where the voices come in to tell them what to do. They are overwhelmed and give their power away to entities from different timelines, they let them decide for them. Also, if other selves would come into our lives constantly, we couldn't have one, singular now. However, what we're missing here on Earth is the psychic perception of that these other timelines with other selves exist and an ability to tune into them at will. Here in our modern world, where reality is work, family, children, and sleep, we are much focused. What we see if what we get. Our ancestors are something in the past, dead and buried, and that's it. In the Eastern philosophies, however, things are looked at differently. Same thing with most native tribes, here in America and elsewhere. They look at the ancestors as if they are still alive in the now, but in another spectrum of reality. They talk to them, ask for guidance and show them respect even if they are long dead, in our terms. They look at their relatives on the other side living simultaneously with them along the lines of time. They know they're there. Electromagnetism is pulse rates upon which energy vibrates. The problem starts when scientists try to measure those and put them on a spectrum scale, one upon the other. All they have done in reality is to find out that they exist, but they fluctuate and interact and don't exist one above the other, necessarily. It's more a dance of frequencies, as the Pleiadians call them, dance meaning that they interact with each other. Science names things and think it's real. They tell everybody it's real, and it becomes real. There are so many false ideas put out by scientists who find out something about something, put a label on it, makes it static and non-flexible and call it good. Then physics books are printed in millions to update with new information so the kids can learn that this is the new truth. Science hasn't realized that the universe is fluid, dimensions are fluid and interact, the electromagnetic spectrum is fluid. Like Dr. Borden of LPGC put it, everything is fluid, what is true today may not be true tomorrow. But isn't that discouraging, though? How on earth will we find the truth? The answer is that we won't, as long as we look for a static truth. We create our own truth, and truth seekers are, more often than not, looking for truth in a wrong way, and they will never find it. When we come to peace with that the multiverse is fluid and fluctuates and changes due to all our thoughts and emotions, then we have found the truth, because it's that simple. Therefore, so long as we are separated, exploring souls in an ever-changing multiverse, we will need belief systems to hang on to. Without them, we are nothing but infinite awareness and infinite intelligent consciousness, we are one with the Prime Creator. So the trick is to find a belief system which serves us well and expand on it to have a more conscious experience, and on it goes. Everybody on this planet and beyond has belief systems they operate from, and on the downside, if our belief systems are very rigid and solid, we create a trap for ourselves. because we become like the fish in a big river who accidentally swims into a pond at the side of the river and gets trapped. After a while he thinks the pond is all there is. We need to be fluid in our thinking and beliefs, and ready to change when it serves us. That's how we stay in tune with the multiverse and operate on the same terms as it does. This is again part of becoming multi-D. We need to let go of our rigid belief systems and open up to new ideas. Feel what is going on. Even those who say they have no extrasensory perceptions, ESP, have them all the time, but they don't pay attention to them. I have said many times in my papers that when time is speeding up, and the pace in our life is increasing due to more challenging work situations, or whatever the reasons may be, we need to slow down. It's so important, because if we don't, we can't learn how to tune into these parallel realities and interdimensional, simultaneous existences. What really happens when you raise your frequency, as so often spoken of when comes to ascension and changing densities, is that we are learning to tune into the different spectra of reality and become aware of what they do. We don't go from one spectrum to another, we tune into them all, simultaneously. Each of these spectra does something specific. The infrared from the sun is warming us up, the gamma rays give us information, etc. They are all there at the same time, in the same space, and we are tuning into them in conjunction with raising our vibrations. All spectra have affected us simultaneously always, but we don't pay attention to what they do for us in our bio-mind. When we understand this and learn how to receive, it is a part of reactivating our DNA and become cosmic beings. This gives a whole new perspective to the phrase, "It's time to wake up." The bottom line when we talk about the electromagnetic spectrum, EM's number, is that it is not mapeable. A certain insect tunes into its perspective of the EMs, while another type of insect tunes into another. All insects see things differently than humans, and even if humans agree to certain combinations of the EMs, they individually see things a little bit differently from each other. We don't agree on everything, although we may agree upon that a table is a table, and a photo is a photo. There are endless combinations of the EMs, and we choose which combinations we want to tune into to create our reality and expand our senses. Similar thing applies when we say we move into a higher density. All densities and dimensions are fluid as well and don't exist one upon another, they exist in the same space, simultaneously. The trick is to tune into them, which can only happen when we expand our consciousness. When we come to a point of acceptance of the fluid multiverse and start opening up our chakras to experience it, we also open ourselves up to greater knowledge of how the multiverse works, and from that we raise our frequencies/vibrations, and can tune into higher densities of existence, where things are more like in the dream state. It's fluid and easier to create what we want due to that reality is less dense/solid. The electromagnetic spectrum is always responding to what is viewing it, and that's when we get to the quantum level. However, if a species is programmed to view things in a certain way, collectively, the EMS is able to glue itself enough to form itself into the mass agreement. Then, in its extension, when you are born into a certain time on a certain timeline, you are immediately tuning into the programming applicable to that particular time and reality. It's programmed into your bio-mind. What we are doing now is that we are breaking the programming by questioning the validity of the reality we have been accustomed to perceive. When we're doing this, one by one, two by two, and so on, it's like a wave of consciousness sweeping over the planet, which other humans tune into and start exploring, until a certain percentage have broken the programming and started seeing things from a bigger perspective. Then, more of humanity will eventually follow. 6.1 Consequences of Earth's Migrating Magnetic Poles. Here is something to think about. Every time we use nuclear weapons, whether it is like with Nagasaki and Hiroshima or tests in the deserts or under the ocean, it doesn't matter. It creates a ripple effect in the space/time continuum, and disturbs the electromagnetic field. Especially now, when time is speeding up, the ripple effect is even wider and faster. The same effect is created when nuclear reactors blow up, like in Japan just recently, 2011. Of course, it causes radiation, which will have devastating effect on the whole planet, not just Japan, but it also creates a shocking effect in the space/time continuum. In the past, some 11,000 years ago, by the end of the Atlantic era, nuclear weapons were used as well, and could have been part of the reason the Earth axis tipped. However, pole shifts are also a cosmic phenomenon and part of a natural cycle, but nuclear energy used out of control may tilt the axis into an unusual angle. Now as we speak, the airports have started changing position of the landing marks to fit the change of the electromagnetic fields on Earth and the polar regions. They are realigning themselves with the shifting of the north and south magnetic poles. People on the internet have since long been discussing the consequences of migrating magnetic poles and pole shifts. Everything has been discussed from one end of the spectrum to the other, to use a metaphor based on a term we just discussed. No one really knows, and some doomsday people have written whole websites about how this will cause the end of mankind. As the magnetic poles are migrating, the Earth's electromagnetic field is weakening. A strong magnetic field is keeping things together, making reality solid and durable. When the field is strong, not much progress is happening on the planet in form of spiritual enlightenment. However, when the field weakens, things become less dense, and reality more fluid. Those who are ready and have prepared, sometimes not only in this lifetime, but through previous lives as well, are now opening up to the cosmos around them and start activating their dormant DNA. This is happening every time we have a pole migration of a pole shift, and there have always been those who have managed to fall through the crack of an otherwise solid population and ascended. Mass ascension, or harvest, however, hasn't happened in quite a few cycles due to the suppression of our DNA activation and the fact that our 12 helices were reduced to 2, and we descended rather than ascended when interdimensional beings came here and interfered with our process on a higher density Earth. In addition, the Anunnaki wanted to experience another level of control in the lower densities, where they could use physical bodies for their convenience. So it was a combination of all these things, and probably more that I am not aware of yet, that led up to what became the third density Earth. So, pole changes don't only create bad effects on the population of a planet. It does create Earth changes and weather changes of magnitude, and it's true that many people will die in the process, and lots of catastrophic things will happen, but still there are those who will gain from it, and those are the ones who have been prepared for this and can use it to develop themselves as biominds on Earth. Again, like always, it has to do with our vibration and how we have learned to deal with your emotions and how well we can manage energy. If we have overcome fear of death, fear of the elements, fear of the earth, fear of the unknown, fear of the body, and fear in general, not only will our survival potentials increase exponentially, but it will be the best thing that has happened to us in this cycle of third density. It will be the springboard to higher frequencies of existence. If a hurricane is coming your way, talk to it. Show it that you are aware of its consciousness, acknowledge it and embrace its existence. Tell it that you know why it's there, and feel its presence. The storm will feel your presence as well and change direction. The weakening of the magnetic field is, as mentioned above, part of a cosmic cycle. The changes in the field are manifests from the Sun, whom is following unusual behavior, having more bursts of electromagnetic energy, solar transmissions etc. The Sun herself is activated because she is picking up from other areas of space, the Sun being part of a light relay system in the cosmos. When the cosmos is going through bigger changes, the Sun is picking it up together with all the planets in the solar system. The global warming advocates, such as Al Gore, saying that global warming on Earth is happening due to pollution and has other man-made causes, fail to tell us that all planets in the solar system are heating up, not only Earth. Can hardly have that much to do with human interference, although I certainly support that we need to stop polluting and destroying our planet, albeit being unrelated to global warming. This is all a distraction to keep people's mind away from what is really happening, and the lies people like Al Gore are promoting is an attempt to distract us from raising our consciousness. When the magnetic field is weakened, more cosmic radiation can penetrate, and because light is information, the increased amount of light, in the gamma-ray spectrum in particular, changes our perspective of reality as a biomind. It changes the width of the visible spectrum, which results in that people start seeing things they haven't seen before. With this I don't just mean that people start seeing auras, ghosts, and other supernatural things shown in the paranormal TV shows, but they also start seeing UFOs and ETs that are interdimensional. Some of them were there all the time, but people were not tuned into the frequencies so that they could see or perceive them. Some of you may suddenly see beings appearing in and out of frequency in their home, as there is a bleed-through between dimensions, and these beings are occupying the same space as you are, but on another frequency. Meant as a joke, but still very true, when you are locking the door behind you, thinking you are finally on your own for a while, think again. This can be exciting for those who are already prepared to meet other realities, but quite scary for those who are not. Still, this is what we need to be prepared for, because in the future, when we're more multi-D in general, not only are we going to see and perceive other realities and timelines, but we will also be able to travel through space without using spaceships. We will be able to travel energetically with our light bodies, or avatars, and transfer our DNA from one place in the universe to another by using stargates and black holes, and even be able to travel in thought, nocively in an advanced form of remote viewing, something that is already developed on this planet today and practiced by a few. The technology is already here. I want to emphasize again that I am not anti-technology, and I don't think we should run into the bushes and leave everything we've learned about technology behind. Technology can be enhancing if used correctly and with a conscious mind. Once we've gained higher awareness from DNA activation, responsibility also comes with it. 7. Multidimensionality in summary. Becoming multidimensional is not some new age love and light wishful thinking. As the planet revolves around the Sun revolves around the Milky Way galaxy, and on her way to complete a great year of 26,556 Earth years, we, the Sun and the planets are going through different cycles of learning, and at the end of every great year, it ends one cycle of third density and a new third density cycle begins. For those who still, understandably so, have a hard time thinking in terms of simultaneous lives and multi-D, let me give you another metaphor here. Imagine a forest. That forest is the soul fragment, see diagrams 2 and 3 above. The forest is full of trees. All these trees are you, and they are shooting up from the ground, reaching for the sky. They all exist at the same time, but are separated from each other. Let's pretend that this separation is linear time here on Earth. However, in reality, we can all see that they exist simultaneously, inserted from vertical time. Metaphorically speaking, they just stand there having their own individual experiences. Still, the soil, or the ground, in which the trees are rooted are part of the tree as well, that's where it gets its energy and food and water which can make it grow and survive. The ground also connects the tree with the other trees in the forest, we can call this the soul level, or the subquantum level. Therefore, everything is connected. If the ground then is connected to the earth, we can compare this with all the separate parts of you. Each tree, small soul, is connected to the forest, soul fragment, and the whole earth, the oversoul. So you see that not only the trees in the forest, that are all having their own experiences, but also the ground and the soil are part of you, it's all connected. But the trees are where the soul fragment, the forest, has its focus, that's where the life energy springs out to have the greatest experience. The same time goes with living different lives simultaneously. You flush energy to certain trees, biomines, throughout time, and that's where you focus your experience. Then you can add that if Earth is the oversoul in our analogy, there are more forests on Earth, and these forests are other planets where you exist as well. I hope this helps the reader to grasp the concept. One thing people of this generation have forgotten is how important it is to listen to our elders, just like the native Indians did and still do. Not only are the elders wiser in the sense that they have more experience in this life because they have lived longer, but they also can open up a part of your timeline which you haven't experienced, due to that you were not there. All in all, you were, because we are everywhere in the multiverse at the same time, but like in the metaphor about the forest above, we have our focus in certain times, on certain timelines. The elders, with their stories, can be of great help for you to understand more about yourself and the reality around you. What they tell you create images in your head that connect dormant experiences in yourself with what the elders tell you. It can also be interesting to hear what they have to say, because they make you put your perceived present time in perspective with a time in the past that was experienced firsthand by somebody. It's like having a person from the 1500s coming and tell you about their lives. It's going to open up things. At the end of each great year, time is collapsing and timelines from the last great year merge together. There will either be a pole shift or a great tilt of the planet's axis, which will weaken the magnetic field and make us more psychic and receptive to the cosmic gamma rays from the Sun and the galactic center, and this will activate our dormant DNA, junk DNA, and we will slowly become multidimensional after linear time has collapsed. Our chakra system is not limited to our bodies, and the crown chakra is not the top chakra. There are 7 chakras in the body and 5 outside the body, which correspond with the cosmos around us and make us connect with everything that's in it. I am told there are more than 12 chakras, but for now, 12 is the number we are working on, because this was the number our creator gods once upon a time used in regards to our biology. There are many challenges and distractions on our way to becoming multi-D, and it's hard work to break the programming we have been subjected to, but as we bravely plow through the barriers, it will become easier and easier. Keep your chakras open and work on your karma. Make sure to take care of unfinished business and get out of debt. The latter is very important. Learn more about what is going on, but remember that the best information you can get doesn't come from the internet, but the internet, which is your inner network, your inner knowledge. All the answers you need can be found inside yourself, but to be able to find them, you need to reconnect with nature, and if you live a busy life in a big city, move out of there if possible, and if it's not possible at the moment, make sure you get time in nature, where you can sit and meditate, look around, connect with everything around you, and communicate with the elements. Discuss things with the trees, the stones, the sun, the stars, that will connect you to your inner self.